Alrighty, welcome everyone to today's first meeting of the Orange County Funding Corporation. I'd like to call this meeting to order and call the audit committee that the time is now 4:01. Can I get a roll call?
Sure. Lee Benton.
Here.
Dean Tamburri.
Here.
Mark Green.
Here.
3 of 3 members present. For staff, myself, Bill Fioravanti, Kelly Riley, Marty Barras, and Matt Dagley doing audio visual. We have our state monitor Brian Sandage here, our general counsel Rudy Zoda via Zoom, and Melissa Zott, our guest from PKF O'Connor Davies.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Sure.
And again, a proof of notice of this meeting was properly provided, and that's on page 2 in your packet. Next, on to minutes. Can I have an approval of the minutes for November 19th, 2025 Audit Committee? Again, I was not here and a member at the time. Motion to approve?
Motion.
Dean, second. Does anyone have any comments or corrections?
No.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Okay, let's make it on to new business, which is a review of the draft 2025 financial audit from PKF O'Connor Davies. Bill?
I think we'll go right to Melissa. The auditors have been here. They were here last week for 3 days, was it? Not even. 2 days? Was 3?
Three
Yeah.
days,
Right. But it was very efficient. Kelly and Marty, as usual, do a tremendous amount of work preparing for it and always supporting the auditors. They had a lot of documents ready in a shared Dropbox folder, so a lot of it was ready to go, and I think you did a lot of work in advance before you got here.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, but great team. We've had a great experience with them for sure. I think it was as efficient as ever. Seems to get better every year. But without further ado, I really give it to Melissa to present.
Okay, and we have quite an extensive packet from here, so where do we start?
So we'll start with the PowerPoint presentation.
The little cheat sheet.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. So my name is Melissa. I was the engagement partner on the audit for this year. I've just gone ahead and.
Excuse me, one question.
Oh, sure.
Is this on the internet for people to see what we are looking at as well?
No, it did not. But
Okay.
we can post it. I think we should post it to this meeting.
Maybe at the final meeting, we should have that for everybody on the internet who's viewing to also see what we are seeing.
Yes. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Agreed. Thanks.
Thank you. So today we're just going to talk about some required communications. We'll go over the income statement and then the balance sheet, and I've also provided the investments at fiscal year end. So certain communications include some responsibilities of management. First and foremost, selecting and implementing the accounting policies that are appropriate for the funding corporation, making sure that the financial statements that you have in draft form are presented in accordance with the United States generally accepted accounting principles, making sure that you're establishing internal controls, but also maintaining those controls, so doing a periodic review, making sure that there's proper checks and balances, compliance with all of your laws, regulations, and any provisions of the contracts that you enter into, and then providing us, as your external auditors, all of the financial information that we request and go back and forth with. I just really want to give a big thanks to Management Bill and Marty and Kelly, because without them, and Shannon too, without all of you, I don't think we could have gotten this efficient audit really at the end of the day. So thank you for that.
So you're talking about the narrative part of these documents that we've received, all of these
Correct, yes.
portions here that you just mentioned are those?
Exactly, yeah. And we'll go to the management letter at the end
Okay.
after the numbers, and I'll just point out some of the extra boxes that aren't necessarily in here.
Okay, and if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. We'll take them, we won't wait till the end, we'll take them as you have them.
As your external auditors, we also have certain responsibilities. We have provided draft deliverables, and we anticipate issuing an independent auditor's opinion that's considered an unmodified opinion. It is the best opinion that the funding corporation can receive. Sometimes you might hear it referred to as a clean opinion as well. We have issued a yellow book report. That's a report on controls. And then we issue an investment report. So that goes over just your cash and your investments. Any deficiencies that we identified in your internal controls, we do communicate those to you. Again, we have a management letter separately. We have not identified any material weaknesses. We have not identified any significant deficiencies, and even our control deficiencies that we've had in the past have been resolved, so there's no control deficiencies as well. We do advise management of the appropriateness of the accounting policies, so we get the policies, make sure they are appropriate. Any fraud or illegal acts that were noted during the audit would have brought up to you prior to today, so I'm happy to report that there were none. We did not identify any,
Actually, ma'am, can I ask you a question?
oh, sure.
So
Go ahead.
let's say you did find fraud.
Mhm.
Who would you bring that up to?
So it definitely depends on who we think started it. Generally speaking, I would bring it up to the board chair, and I would also include the board. At that point, I would have investigated enough to understand what the actual facts are and make sure the facts were correct. 'Cause I don't want to present something to the board that's not accurate.
But there is, your policy is to go to the chairman
Yes.
since that person is in the day-to-day operations of the.
Exactly, yeah, and
Thank you.
I generally would include the entire board as well, but it's important to let you know right away once I have all the facts.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to report we did not encounter any significant difficulties as part of this audit. It ran very smoothly this year. No uncorrected misstatements noted, no disagreements with management, and then we did maintain independence from the funding corporation. On to the next slide. This is the income statement of the corporation. There's currently operating revenues, expenses, and then non-operating revenues. Currently, there are no operating revenues reported as of December 31st, 25, but you do have operating expenses. There were $250,000 spent on projects and special initiatives. That was specifically the new generator to the Hudson Valley Food Bank that was provided in 25. Your next line item for your operating expenses is your professional fees. Professional fees for the funding corporation, the largest portion of that $114,000 was $90,000 of management fees to the Orange County IDA. So it's their portion of the operating costs. You had about $13,000 specifically for legal fees. And then you had about $11,000, which is audit and bookkeeping costs. So that's all included in your professional fee line. Next line is your bad debt expense. You can see that that's a negative expense. You do have some receivables that are fully allowed for. Luckily, the funding corporation was able to collect on those receivables. So even though they were allowed for the possibility that they weren't going to be collected, the corporation was fortunate enough to collect those at $8,700. So the makeup of those would be a receivable from Cream Enterprises. There was a Paris Corp, and then a Ron de Groot for the receivables that you collected. Next is your insurance expense. That would be for any insurance policies that you have that covers the corporation. And that totals your total operating expenses of $361,000. You did have some non-operating revenues to offset those expenses, and that was entirely interest income related. That came out to about $72,000. Relating to that, that was about 2 CDs that matured during the year and 3 T-bills. And then at fiscal year end, you had 3 investments, so we accrued the interest associated with those, and that's included in the $72,000. So overall, your change in that position, excuse me, was a negative $289,000. So you started off the year at about 1.8 million. You ended the year almost at 1.6. So let's go to your balance sheet on the next page. Well, your assets, your larger assets here are your cash and equivalents and your investments. I did provide specifically the 3 investments that make up the 1.5 million, which we'll go over after the balance sheet items. Accrued interest receivable, the $15,000, that's the interest that was accrued for the CDs and the T-bills. So we were able to break that out this year, instead of grouping it with cash. And then lastly, on your asset side is your prepaid expenses, 4,700. That would represent your insurance policies that cover, both fiscal years, so that would be the portion that you've already paid that will be expensed next year. Next is your liabilities, which is accounts payable, accrued expenses. You have about 28,000 on that line. Of that 28,000 is 22 is due to the Orange County IDA, so that got paid subsequently. And then a very tiny portion for legal expenses. So that brings your total net position to almost 1.6. At the bottom of this page, you can see the 3 investment types. You have the $600,000 CD. That CD is at a 3.88% interest. Last year, you also had a 600,000 CD, and that was at 5.1% interest. So we know the interest rates dropped this year, so you did go from the 5.1 to the 3.8. And then you also have 2 U.S. Treasury bills with maturity dates March of 19, so it's coming up, and then October 1st. These are 0% Treasury bills, but you do get the difference between the price and the discounted price. So that totals your 1.5 million. If there's any questions on these numbers before we go to the management letter, I can take those now.
Okay. So is it appropriate to ask people who have on the hard copies questions with the financial statements at this time?
Sure, yes.
Okay. So on page 4 of the financial statement, I see projects and special initiatives. Since I'm a new member here, what was the 250,000 from?
Page 4?
Sure.
Page 4.
So I gave you a packet, it starts with this. There's 2 colored sheets. The first colored sheet separates the management letter and the financial statement, so you would go after
Thank you.
that, no problem.
Oh,
No
okay.
problem.
That's okay, all good.
And then you would go to page 4 after that.
Got it, thank
Okay,
you.
No problem. I try to make it a little bit easier in case someone needs to one.
That's okay, yeah. I didn't, they handed those out early. I just kept what was
Oh, no,
given to
no
me
problem,
before,
no
so.
problem. Sure. So, the expenses of the 250,000, that would be the new generator,
Oh, that was
for
from
the Hudson
before.
Valley. Okay.
Good night.
Alrighty. On page 8, the reconciliation of loss from operating to net cash operating activities, 361,000. That's just what it turns out to be is the end of year balance, correct?
Yeah, that would be the operating loss. So
Okay.
that wouldn't necessarily factor in your interest income, because that's specific for like a non-operating investment activities, but that's the 361 operating loss.
Okay. And I think that's all the questions I had. Other members, questions? Okay, I think we'll go to your next step.
Perfect. So on the first part of this is the management letter. I just want to walk through this really quickly. On page 4 of this, it's the status of the audit. So again, we do anticipate issuing an unmodified opinion. The Paris report are due March 31st, so just make sure that, that they're filed before then. And then on the following pages, the boxed items were mostly covered on the required communications on the PowerPoint. But I do want to point out specifically on page 8, the bottom box on page 8 is significant risks. And as part of the external audit process, we do a risk assessment process. And there's 2 significant risks we identify, and we do identify in most of our entities that we audit. The first one is management override of internal controls. Generally speaking, management has access to a lot of items, so there is a risk that management could override those internal controls. We do look at the journal entries and the board approvals, making sure that there's proper oversight of that. So we're happy to report that our audit procedures did not identify any override from management on the controls. The second significant risk is your improper revenue recognition due to fraud. That is an AICPA mandated significant risk. It's a really hard risk to overcome, just with the entity itself. So we do develop audit procedures specific to that. And we are also reporting that there were no improper revenue recognition due to fraud. So happy to
Good.
report on that. And then page 10 is the internal control letter. And this letter is identifying the different levels of deficiencies we could have, material weakness being the highest, significant deficiency being the second, and then generally we'll have other considerations. And this is just stating that we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control for the corporation. On the horizon on page 11 and 12, these are some upcoming GASBs. This will impact both organizations. You've got GASB 103. This is really going to impact the corporation on the first bullet point, which is your management discussion and analysis. That's that first couple pages in the report. This GASB is just trying to consolidate the MD&A and make it more understandable to the reader and not as repetitive. So that will change a little bit, you'll see, but will help with the implementation of that. And that's really the only bullet point here that will impact you, so that's great.
They're constantly inventing more GASBs. Can't remember what
They
the
are.
GASB numbers were when I started
Yes,
with the legislature, but now we're up to 104, 105.
yeah, it's quite a lot. I don't think the 104 will implement the corporation, that's related to capital assets, the funding corp doesn't have any. And then the subsequent events is just adding additional disclosure on what type of procedures are performed for the subsequent events and if there are any identified. Okay.
Here's something that the county, one of them, OPEB, do we have to claim OPEB anywhere?
No, not here. I don't think any post-employment benefits are offered. There is a voluntary
Wouldn't
deferred comp.
employees here as part of the county?
We're not part of the county.
Well, that's true, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we went through all that.
Yeah,
Right,
right,
At one
okay, yeah.
point.
It says discrete component unit of the Orange County, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Page 13 and 14 goes into the adjusting journal entries we identified. There were two noted. The first one was just our entries from last year, just posting them again this year, and then accruing the interest for the interest revenue for that.
So I've never seen these before. These misstatements, errors, or just corrections?
They're just corrections. Yeah.
Reconciliation corrections, kind of.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. So the
Okay.
first one we reconciled to the prior year audit.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just a reconciliation item. And then the accrued interest receivable was just increasing the revenue for the interest based on the amount earned in the current period.
Okay, good.
But I apologize, but it appears, the way it's stated, corrected and
Yeah,
misstatements, it's really correcting it. I mean, that's all, adjusting entries, it's not really,
Yes, it's a,
just because it sounds.
the
There was no
verbiage.
miss-
Yeah,
That's why I just wanna
right.
make sure
Yes.
that we're, that's the standard, but it's.
It's the verbiage
So
that we're
people-
required to
people hear
use,
that. I understand.
unfortunately, yeah. Yes,
understand.
but it is, yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So for the funding corporation, that would conclude my overall presentation, but again, any questions?
okay. Does any committee member have any questions or anything with form or substance? All right, so hearing none, again, no reason to vote to accept because we're waiting to accept the final in 2 weeks at the next full meeting. So again, thank you very much for your submissions. Very informative, lots of information, and of course, also lots of narratives to cover each section and such with both of the financial statements and schedule of cash and investments. So I want to thank you very much for everything. Any other questions from committee members?
No.
Anything to bring forward? Bill, anything? All right. So seeing nothing left to do, a motion to adjourn is in order. Motion?
Motion.
Dean, second? Mark? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to today's Audit Committee for the Orange County Industrial Development Agency. First thing I'd like to do is welcome everybody, but also do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so again, call the meeting to order. So next would be roll call.
Yes, Lee Benton,
Here.
Dean Tamburri,
Here.
Mark Green.
Here.
3 of 3 members present. We also have for staff, Bill Fioravanti, Kelly Riley, Marty Boras, Matt Digley on audio-visual, Rudy Zoda, our general counsel, Mr. Brian Savage, our state monitor, and Melissa Zott, our guest, as our auditor from PKF O'Connor Davies.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. And again, notice if this meeting was properly provided, and it's you see that in your packet documentation. Next up is approval of the minutes for the November 19th, 2025 Audit Committee meeting. Can I get a motion in a second, please?
Motion.
Mark, second. Dean, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Next is new business, to review the draft 2025 financial audit from PKF O'Connor Davies. And again, we are going to be looking at the orange packet
Yes,
first for the presentation. Melissa?
great, thank you. So my name is Melissa Zott, I was the engagement partner on the Orange County IDA. So we'll go over the PowerPoint first. Did you want me to also go over the required communications again?
Yeah, you should, for the public, so
Great.
that they know in disclosure that the same thing.
Perfect. So the responsibilities of management include selecting and implementing appropriate accounting policies, the financial statements in draft, making sure that those are presented fairly in accordance with the United States generally accepted accounting principles. Not only establishing internal controls, but also maintaining those, doing periodic review, making sure there's proper checks and balances. Compliance with all of your laws, regulations, and any provisions within the contracts. And then providing us with all of our financial records that the IDA has, any information that we request. And again, I just wanna thank Bill, Kelly, Marty, and Shannon for giving us all the information. It is a lot of back and forth, so I appreciate that. Next, on the following page, as the external auditors, we also have certain responsibilities. We anticipate issuing an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, referred to as a clean opinion, and it is the best opinion that the IDA can receive. We'll also issue a yellow book report, which is a report on controls, and an investment report, which would be a report on your cash and equivalents, as well as your investments. We're required to communicate in writing any deficiencies we've identified over internal controls, and happy to report that there were no material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies as part of this audit. We review the accounting policies to make sure that they are appropriate for the entity. Any fraud or illegal acts that were noted during the audit would have been communicated prior to today, so we're happy to report that there were none. We did not encounter any significant difficulties, no uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with management, and we did maintain independence as part of this audit. So we'll go on to the next slide for the income statement. This is just gonna focus on the revenue side first. So there are operating revenues and non-operating revenues of the IDA. Your operating revenues include some charges for services. First line is gonna be your closing fees. You have about 11,000 in there. That would be primarily for the phase 2 of the Royal Wine Corp closing fee. Next line is gonna be management administration fee, so 90,758. That is the amount of the received from the funding corporation. So you had, on the funding corporation, you had an expense. Here you're
This
gonna
is
have a
where it
revenue.
shows up.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Next line is your application fees, about 17,500. Each application fee was 2,500, and you had 7 application fees as part of this number. Next line is your administration fee, 15,000. In your administration fee, you had some labor monitoring fees and some easement agreements, as well as some grants in there. Next is your other income, 9,200. There was a refund in there for IDA payment. You had some pass-through legal fees that were collected, and a lease termination fee from Satin Fine Foods. And a new item this year is federal aid. The IDA did submit an application to the Environmental Protection Agency, that's the EPA, for a brownfields grant, 500,000. It was awarded, and this is gonna be, the 72,000 is gonna represent what was spent so far. It is a reimbursement grant, so on the following page, we'll see the expense side of it, and this is gonna be the revenue side.
So this is the expense so far?
That's what has been, yeah,
20,000.
expense and received.
Okay, and what is the total possible?
500,000
500,000?
Yes.
Okay, excellent,
over 3 or 4 years, it would be, so.
good, thank you.
So you'll see, I imagine you'll see this increasing over the years, over the next few years for that. And then your non-operating revenue is gonna represent your interest income. You've 380,000 this year. That equals 4 CDs that matured during the year, so you did earn interest on those, and then 1 T-bill matured. Again, at year end, you are holding 2 CDs and 1 T-bill, so the accrued interest is included in there as well.
Thank you to the finance committee, did a great job on that, as with OCFC, some great income for us.
So let's go to the next slide for expenses. So there are operating expenses at the agency. First line is gonna be projects and special initiatives. There were 14,000 that were payments to Camoin Associates for Scanel and Amazon. The next line is your payroll, 311,000. Including your payroll would be Bill, Marty, and Kelly, as well as 2 additional interns in that amount. With the next line for your payroll taxes and benefits of 84,000, that would be your payroll taxes, workers' comp, health, dental coverage, and then any retirement or profit sharing included. The next line is your rent, so 32,000, almost 33,000, that's for the building. And the largest line is your professional fees, 536,000. Included in that amount are 215,000 to Anshin for the New York State Monitor, a little under 130,000 for legal counsel, just to address certain matters and policy updates. Also included in there is the 72,000 for the Brownfield grant, so that's where the expenses are included. And then you also have your audit and bookkeeping expenses in that line. The next line is advertising, so that will represent any marketing services that the IDA received during the year, or paid out during the year, 51,000. Next line is 13,000 for repairs and maintenance. That would include, this year, cleaning services and office painting. 31,000 relates to telephone or IT support, for that line. Last year, that was about 84,000, so it did come down, which is good. Next is your utilities, which is gas and electric is included in there, so it's about 10,000. You had some office and miscellaneous costs, about $25,000. That's broken up between supplies and postage, some training, and some internet costs. Your travel and entertainment expense of $18,000. That includes $10,000 related to memberships and events, and $8,000 specific for the travel and meals for those. Insurance would be your insurance policies that are paid out during the year. Your interest expense would be your lease interest. You are leasing the building, so there are some interest expense associated with that. And then your depreciation and amortization would be depreciation on the fixed assets that the IDA owns, as well as the lease here.
And those would be such as,
So you own some office furniture and fixtures.
okay,
There's a camera. There were some leasehold improvements in 2010 that were done in 2010, and then a right to use asset, which is specifically related for the lease liability.
okay.
So that totals your overall operating expenses of 1.2 million. Overall, you did have a net loss of 612,000. So you start off the year at 9.4, and you ended at the year almost at 8.9 million. So let's look at your balance sheet next, your assets and liabilities. Your cash and equivalents were almost at 400,000, and your investments were almost at 8.5. We'll go over the investments on the following page. You did have accounts receivable of 27,000. Again, as we saw in the funding corporation, there was a payable of 22,000. So in this receivable is 22,000 from the funding corp. And then there was a $5,000 security deposit. Accrued interest receivable of 93,000, that's included in the interest revenue. So that makes up the CDs and the T-bills, interest related to that. Prepaid expenses of 17,000, that is specific for your insurance policies. So again, you pay in advance of the year, so that's hovers over both fiscal years. And here, the 169,000 is the capital assets that we spoke of. So that's the amount that is net of depreciation and the amortization of the right to use asset. So that totals assets of almost 9.2 million. Next, we have liabilities. The largest liability here is going to be your accounts payable and accrued expenses of 177,000. Of that amount, the two larger items, you had about 81,000 due to the New York State Monitor, and then 58,000 due for legal services. Next, you have escrow liabilities, which are being held in the cash and equivalents, and a small amount of deposits payable for a tenant security deposit. This non-current liabilities, the 56,000 is what's due in the current period, and 78,000 is what's due long term. This is specific to the lease liability for Crotty Lane, and there was a lease modification made in 2025. It did extended the term through April 30th, 2028. And it also was able to obtain additional space as well. Your net position is broken out into three items. First item is your net investment in capital assets. So that 35,000, you take your capital assets and offset any liabilities associated with that. So that would be your lease liability. And then you do have 500,000 that is designated. That is included in your 2026 budget for your shovel ready program. And then you have about 8.3 million that's undesignated at that point. If we go to the next page, this is going to be the three investments that the agency holds at December 31st, 25. There are two security deposits. The 4.7 million, the rate there is about 3.88%. Last year you were at about 5.1. And then the 2.5 million CD is 4.03%, last year at 4.5%, so that only declined a little bit. And then your T-bill of 1.3. So that would conclude my presentation on the numbers before I go over the other items. Any questions?
Any questions from committee members? So going to this financial document, the financial statements and supplementary information for the IDA. Page 7. Again, it's just a term that sounds funny, error correction.
Yes.
At the bottom of page 7, $282,000. Can you just explain that?
Sure. So, there was a new GASB implemented, this used to be called like a prior period adjustment, so it would correct, opening numbers. There is a footnote on page 14,
Okay.
that describes it. Essentially, this was to properly restate, interest earned and interest receivable specific to the investments. You do have 0% T-bills. Generally speaking, 0% T-bills, we don't often see too much, so the calculation was utilizing the coupon rate instead of the difference between the discount rate and the purchase price. So we just ended up restating that, and it shows a more comparable interest revenue number year over year.
Okay. But again, it should be called error correction?
It's mandated, unfortunately, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, hearing nothing again, at this point, again, we do not take a vote because that will come in 2 weeks for the public, at our real committee meeting of the whole.
Sir,
Yeah.
I think we still have more to do.
Yes, no, I'm just,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so, 'cause I have some comments at the end I wanted to make. but-
On this?
Yeah.
If you want to make a comment on the financial part, it's time to do it now. Because she's done with her presentation and.
I can go
we're-
over
we're-
the management letter if you'd like.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So the first page, first part of the packet is the management letter. I also want to point out here that the Paris report on page 4, the Paris report is required to be filed on March 31st. So once we issue, please make sure that that is filed. We did identify on page 8 the same 2 significant risks for the agency. We did develop audit procedures for these 2, and we did not identify any such instances of management override of internal controls or improper revenue recognition due to fraud. On page 10, this is our report on internal controls over financial reporting. Again, it identifies the levels of deficiencies, and it also identifies that there were no material weaknesses. And then you can see there are no significant deficiencies, no control deficiencies, so happy to report on that. Again, similar, has on the horizon for upcoming GASB statements, and then the entries that were identified and posted as part of this audit, and then the rep letter that we'll need as part of the signing. So that does conclude it. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry to try to have cut you off short. Questions or comments from board members? Dean?
I just, I know a lot of times with the research, I just wanted to say that, I know that, Marty, they do a great job, obviously, Kelly as well, because a lot of times with the, getting information back from the people that we work with, if we had any issues this time, I mean, I know sometimes you have to call several times to get information back from the people we do business with, to finalize these numbers, so thank you guys always for that. I know we've struggled in the past, hopefully, I know you guys have streamlined that, I appreciate it.
We still have a naughty list though, but.
Of course, there always is, but I know there's nothing they can do about it other than
No.
waiting and whatnot, and I know it's difficult, I know we have schedules to submit all this information, so I always wanna say thank you guys for that, cause I know you work hard at it. The other item is that, well, it would be nice to have some more closing fees to add on to our statement, obviously. And then I just wanted to ask again, so we have projects out there, but we're not gonna receive some of those monies until there's a closing, is that correct?
Correct.
So in other words, seven applications, correct, but that there could be obviously additional funding hopefully coming soon, right?
Absolutely.
Right, okay, I just wanted to.
And Blakely Platt, I give them full credit, they've tried with every one of these projects, they're always staying in touch with them, making sure that they have all the documents and the checklist, this, that, and the other, it's just, one reason or another for each of them, and been dragging out a little bit. We have a good 4 waiting for closing.
Correct, and is there like a time frame that they have to meet, otherwise it could go stale, or is that, I was just curious, I wasn't sure
After
about that.
approvals, Rudy,
Like once.
time to close? Or is that more
The
stipulated in the
resolutions
closing
say
agreement?
that the resolutions say that they can terminate upon a year, but only with action from the board, not automatically.
That's fine.
And I don't think we're close to a year on all of them, even though they, you know, on any of them, but even though as time marches on. One I know was August, we haven't closed yet, so.
And then the only other comments, I know, I listen to the back of our minds, I know about the brownfields, et cetera, but, you know, and time goes fast, it's like, you know, can we, is there any way we can like utilize these funds? I mean, we have the 3 years, correct? We just wanna make sure that we utilize
Yeah, we're
these
moving as
funds.
quickly as we can with
I
that.
just-
It's gonna pick up in terms of spending this year because we're doing more phase 2 analyses of properties. That's where you're doing actual soil borings and testing and things like that. Phase 1 are paper trails. We've been doing mostly phase 1 reports, plus kind of getting it going, starting with getting our task force together, all that all happened in 2025. Now you're seeing real work happening. But it will take us a good 3 years. And between cuts to the EPA staff and some of what we're waiting for and approvals for every step of the way, we're encountering some of that, but it still will pick up. But it will take us a good 3 years to expend all the funds, for sure.
I would ask you this, to bring that up when we're all together, because I do think that's an important discussion to have, because there's a lot more to it. I don't know if, you know, we just wanna keep it between the 3 of us, so, because there are a lot of things, and I think that, you know, that is an important, task or goal for 2026, 27, 28, so I urge you to, one of us to remember to
Yeah,
bring it up.
well, I'll leave it to the chair, some of the items that we discussed, so.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Please continue.
No, that was pretty much what I had written down anyway,
Okay.
so,
All
thank
right.
you.
I
Thank
would,
you.
I would also like to thank Marty and Kelly, for everything that you do. And now that it's done, now you can start worrying about the next thing. I ask you this every time, what could we have done better? What, you know, I know we've talked about streamlining 4 or 5 years ago. We were spending a week doing this, then it was 4 days, 3 days, now I think you were here 2 days. I realize that that's probably as least amount of days you can spend here, but was there anything that you recognize that, be it, you know, oversight, be it, information produced to you in a timely manner, whatever the case may be, can you give us an honest assessment of anything that we could do better?
Sure. Definitely not the information being provided. That was provided right away in advance of the scheduled field date, so I definitely appreciate that. We don't get a lot of that from the clients that I work on. Usually it's the week or the Monday of the audit and we're trying to rush through stuff, so I definitely appreciate the hard work on that. The corrected misstatements or the adjusting journal entries, I think would be the only area to focus in on. Ideally, we would see maybe 1 or maybe even 0. So just looking at these, most of the time these are gonna be journal entries that will be recurring. One of them is the GASB 87, so just making sure, and we can always provide the schedules to Shannon as well to post these. Some of them were for accrued legal services, so it could just be invoices that came in when we were in the field or even after. There's something that the IDA or the FC could have done to necessarily capture those unless you did an estimate, and then we would still have to adjust it for when the invoice came in.
And what page are you on?
Oh, sure, it's on page 14 of the management letter, so it'd be the.
Page 14 of the blue pen.
Yeah, the blue one. So that would really be my only suggestion. It definitely didn't hold up the audit, it didn't delay us in any way, shape, or form, but it's always nice to come in and have certain items reconciled. Yeah, it looked like all the policies were good and in place. We reviewed, various schedules, didn't have any necessarily issues with them, so.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, no, no.
No, I just wanted, because you had talked, you had mentioned in the last report that management could override or whatever, is it a little bit? And is that because, was that part of that as well, like the override that you're talking about?
Yeah, yes, but it becomes more important in a smaller organization, just because
Correct.
if there are, 2 or 3 people, everybody's kind of has access to everything.
Correct.
So making sure that whatever Bill does is being reviewed by the board, whatever Marty and Kelly does is being reviewed by Bill. So we just make sure to check those approvals. We didn't identify any issues with those approvals. Specifically making sure that the full board is involved in the decisions, that they are aware of all the activity going on, so that if anything did happen where management did override the controls and maybe paid invoice that shouldn't have been paid, the board would be fully aware of that at that point. So as long as you guys are aware of the transactions that are ongoing, then that should be
Thank
good.
Sadly, bad people can do bad things,
Of course,
no matter what,
Mhm.
whether
Right.
it's this place or whether it's somewhere else.
they think of something else.
Yeah, I mean, it would be next to impossible to do something with the FC because there just isn't enough there. You would notice the leakage. The IDA, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do something bad, there's, probably a couple of thousand a month.
But like I said, we talk about the same thing, there's not enough people, so okay, you do this.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's people, you know what I mean, like, I don't know if it'd be oversight.
Oh, okay.
Like, I honestly, if you wanted me to, yeah, I could skim a couple $1,000 a month if I wanted to, because there's enough money there, and there's enough ways to do it that you could just do something that it wouldn't, you could have 100 people looking it over. Like, we look over every single invoice every month,
Yes, we do.
and I guarantee you, even with us looking over it every month, there would be a way to do it.
Right, it would be typically included outside.
I mean, at some point, we do the best we can, we put things in place, but I've seen, I was one of the first people to know about Enron's nonsense in 2001, and, and I've seen, Pop Warner, Little League treasurers
Having
saving
numerous
hundreds of
little
thousands of dollars.
issues a long time ago.
At the end of the day, I feel comfortable we are doing everything humanly
Yes,
possible.
Right.
And there are so many eyes looking at every single thing.
I just wanted to kind of clarify, because some of the requirements and verbiage that you have to use sounds like there's issues, and that's all, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, and eventually you'll all get caught.
Right, at some point.
Typically.
Somebody has to take vacation.
Yeah, typically, everybody does get caught eventually, so. All right, anything else?
Thank you for your honesty.
Yes,
Thank
Thank you.
yes, again, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And tell Nick and Chris I said hello.
I will, absolutely.
Okay, on to old business, which is the documentation of labor procurement. Do we need a motion in a second for discussion like we do with the county, or
No.
we just go right into it?
Go right into it, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So back in, of course, Anshin does a 6-month report to the Inspector General's office in New York State. That's when we learn of their recommendations that they're making, based upon the work they've done over those 6 months. Back in April of '25, one of their recommendations applied to our local construction labor policy, actually at the request from applicants for waivers to the policy, whether it's typically insufficient labor available, could be price differential issue, could be specialty labor required in order to honor a warranty, something like that. Anshin has basically been recommending, like they have with most of the recommendations, greater documentation of the process of applicants following the policy. In this case, I'll just read exactly what the recommendation is. OCIDA should require its contractors to document their good faith effort to comply with the labor requirements outlined in the labor policy. This documentation must be submitted alongside any waiver request to ensure transparency and compliance with the local labor requirements. The forms used for this purpose must clearly outline the contractor's efforts to recruit and hire local labor including specific actions taken to engage with local workforce resources. Anshin can provide templates for the GFE forms. So we discussed this, I think the last time was October 25 on our audit committee meeting then. What the committee had requested of Anshin was providing a form that we would use, and as well as a tracker they had recommended. And the committee also asked for examples of other IDAs that were following this methodology. And then they requested that I speak to those IDA leaders and kind of find out how onerous it was, how well it's worked, if it's driven projects away, any of that. So you do see in your packet, Anshin provided an application, basically amendments to our waiver form. I did put on, and I don't think this is online as well, but I dropped it on your tables. This is our current waiver form, just I thought you may want to see as reference what we're using now. And then you see what Anshin in your packet is recommending.
Which is these 2 pages?
Correct. One is is that those 2 pages, and then there's another page which is basically our tracker, so it would be tracking that GFE documentation. So they provided these forms, and then I think Brian and I had a meeting Monday afternoon virtually, and he provided some names of IDAs around the state that are using this practice as well. And that's kind of where we stand at the moment.
Okay, so what action are we looking to do today? Because on this application here, reading it under number 2, you should actually probably have to quantify the money that the person should have to, or entity should have to quantify the money they spent or invested. And I think that would fit under number 2. And this I'm just getting today. Are we looking to be able to meld these now into a new form?
Yeah, I think my objective was to see where the committee is with what they've seen from Anshin and any discussion, and see where we go next. Frankly, I think that was to be determined today.
Okay.
I don't have it with me, but I read through it. What is, can I see what you were
Sure.
put on there? What you were discussing? Money spent, invested in undertaking this.
Yes, right, exactly. What they've actually spent to make sure, because I liked your forms. I didn't have any problem with the form.
Dean, the idea is we had the conversation regarding Royal Wine and the racking system.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of
The
that.
palace,
So,
you remember that?
and I think, there, you had said, hey, if our guys were trained, we could have done it. And the issue, that whole conversation, this would actually give you the documentation as to why they can't, and you have proof to it, as to when they're coming in for the waiver. And I think that conversation that we had now several months ago on it is, one of the reasons for the GFE, because it puts the onus back on them to document why they need a waiver for it. Or if they didn't, if they had someone from the outside, why they had to do that.
Right. So,
Because then on that, you could actually challenge it, or someone could, because you have that actual documentation.
So for me, in the past, we had some things that we didn't wanna put undue burden on some of these projects, right? Some of the local material items that we've discussed in
Right.
length, what would that do for them, and all the research, et cetera, and pricings and whatnot. And on this form, when I reviewed it, to me, it would really just be a summary of what they've completed, right? So they've, it's just, they're putting in a summary of what they're actually have done to provide that, so.
To try and comply or comply.
Correct, so, for me, I think it's fine. The only other thing I would like to add to that, because it's me, is that, they speak to the local building trades. But, other than that, for labor source, but other than that, then, I think the form is just a summary of what they've completed, so I don't think it's a burden on them, on this project.
So are you in agreement that I think the next step is for us to take this form supplied by Anshin, the letter or paragraphs, and meld it into a new form that we develop, this committee with Bill?
I don't know if that's the next step. I guess my question is, in the last 40 hours that you got this, did you have a chance to talk to any of the other IDs?
I have not. I haven't been able to call anyone since.
Oh, okay,
maybe
so
it's
4
Monday
months
afternoon.
for this piece of paper, and just like everything else Anshin does, we're just supposed to do whatever they say we're supposed to do?
No,
No concern about the onerous, whether this is gonna be a problem for other companies to come do business in Orange County. So personally, I would rather wait and interview those other IDAs and find out what this is, what the problem is. And frankly, I think it's pathetic that we had to wait 4 months and delay this yet again.
Well, I didn't mean for us to do this in 2 weeks by the next meeting. I meant to, and I should have stated it better, to wait for Bill to gather the more information from the other IDAs, see what they're doing, and that way we can put it all together in an appropriate package. So again, here we are just accepting information for
And to Mark's point, I mean,
future discussion.
if this is an important document that we should have included, then we should do it as soon as we
Do it right.
possibly can. And we don't have that, so.
But doing it right,
Correct, I agree.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I
Any
can work
other
on that.
discussion?
Sure. I think that's it. I think that makes sense.
I think
I'll
so.
follow up, work on editing the document and getting feedback from the other IDAs.
Okay,
We'll report back to you.
excellent, very good. Is there anything else for discussion today under old business?
You know, when would we meet again then, Bill? Is there, do we have a date for another audit, or that, I know
Set a
sometimes we
date for
have
the
to
next audit meeting?
move them around because there's items that come up that need to be addressed as well, but to Mark's point, is like where.
Let me see what the calendar is.
Yeah, I apologize. I
No,
should-
no,
I
no,
should
no,
know what it
no,
is,
no, no,
right? I mean,
that's
no,
something
no.
You
that
sent, you
should
sent
be.
it out, I should know what it is, but,
Frankly, it's easier if I just grab it off my desk.
yeah,
Absolutely. No, good point, we should,
I mean,
I mean, I got the
Take two
notice,
meetings.
I got the
Mark's
notice
point that
of
we don't-
today's meeting last week, so I just put it right down on my calendar,
Yeah.
but
because I mean, our last meeting wasn't in.
it was October.
Which is fine, because that's, but,
Yeah, next
In the
audit committee
meantime,
is not until
to Mark's
September
point,
of this
we're-
year, so this fall.
So I think you're gonna wanna
We
put something
have-
else on the calendar.
Yeah,
that
so.
we have an item that we could have,
March, April, May, June, July, August, September,
May,
we could have resolved.
7, so I
Yeah,
think
some
something
small
like June, June?
May or June would be great, and then we don't have a third meeting in those months, so that would be a good time for us to schedule them.
Okay,
We can discuss, I don't think we have to do it this second, but I
Right.
mean, I think it's something that we can discuss. And believe me, I don't wanna have another meeting if we don't, but obviously, unfortunately.
okay, so we will work that out,
Yeah, we don't need the
with,
board to necessarily decide it in this committee.
No.
Rudy, we don't need the committee to decide when this meeting will be, right? I can work with them individually and find a date and schedule it without this committee actually approving that date right now?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
you don't have to come to a date now, and you don't have to do it in the committee.
Great.
proper notice will
I'll
be
follow.
given at the timeliness that it's supposed to be.
For sure.
Okay, thank you, Dean, thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. All right. Anything else to discuss? If not, motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion.
Dean, second. Mark, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you.
coming and listening. Thank you very much. Thanks, Rudy.
Thank you, Rudy. See you soon.
Thank you.